Hello, everyone. We are going to wait for 1 minute or two for people to join. In the meantime, well, my name is Maria Blanco, as you know. If you could please write on the chat, where it says chat, your name, the language you are learning right now, and where you are connecting from, that would be nice. Hi, Annie. Teaching French, great. Adele, Spanish and Italian, living in Norway. From Bournemouth, TFL, London, Munich. Wow. Australia, amazing. Great. It's so good. This is the great thing about online, that we can connect from so many places. Barcelona as well, Manchester, lovely. French in London, Ruthie. In Dubai, wow, from Sevilla. Ireland. We have already so many countries. So happy to see that. From Brussels, and many languages, different languages. Fabulous. Eileen from North London. Great. Okay, so I'm going to share screen with the presentation. And we get started. I have to tell you, I have to confess that I find a bit difficult these events where I cannot see people's faces because they are very large and the cameras are off. And but I tell you, I have total confidence in that the content that I'm about to present to you can make a big difference to the way you learn. So I go ahead. My name is Maria Blanco. I am a language learning strategies coach, and I also work as a Spanish lecturer in the University of Westminster in London. I am living in London and working in London. And what I'm delighted to be here because I am talking about my favorite topic, which is language learning strategies. So what I'm going to share with you is the experience that I have gathered over more than 25 years of teaching as a language teacher, Spanish in my case, also more than 20 years working as a language learning strategies coach, and also as a language learner. I started learning French when I was a kid for some years, and then I got on with English, and then I moved to England, and then I've been learning English for many, many years, and I've gone through many, many phases. Initial phases where it was really, I never thought I could make it, and here I am delivering a workshop in English and being understood by people from all over the world. So it's been a long and very interesting journey, and I've gathered a lot of experience from that too. So my wish is that this workshop gives you a lot of motivation, increases your motivation, maintains your motivation, gives you inspiration, and also very practical tools for you to learn in an effective way, enjoyable way. And I am a great believer that the strategies are the key to empowerment for language learning, because you will get to know how to do things on your own, or even if you go to the classroom, how to manage the process that you go through in the classroom better. So I trust that it will happen. I've seen it happening for so many years in the workshops I've given to students, to teachers, in the coaching I've done, that I am confident that that is going to work. Obviously, some of you will be more inclined to do certain things than others, but that's part of our unique journey. So let's move on to the next one. Some of you have already done it. If you haven't done it, please type on the chat your name, where you are connecting from, the language you are learning or teaching, if you are a teacher. And about questions, can you please write the questions in the Q&A box, not in the general chat, so that I'll deal with all the questions at the very end of the workshop. We'll have time for that. Now I have to manage, it's a bit tricky managing the chat at the same time. Okay. So the session is about presenting 6 top strategies that will facilitate the development of your speaking skills and make the process more enjoyable. These are, what I'm giving you is like a holistic vision. These are macro strategies, and within each strategy, macro strategy, there are other strategies, so that you get an overview of the whole thing, the whole process. Where do these ideas come from? These ideas is not that just imagine these things. I've already told you, I have this experience as a language teacher, as a language learning strategies coach. I've done research. I did my MA, my dissertation, and then action research projects. I've implemented this with my students in the university and in other institutions. And so far it's been very successful. Of course, there are things that you need to learn along the way, and it's been an ongoing development. And I also have experience as a study skills teacher. That was how I started my professional career. And that helped me a lot to understand also the how to learn. And then it was when I started teaching Spanish, when I got interested in how to apply the study skills to language learning. Also, the strategies are well backed up by research, current research in applied linguistics, in cognitive psychology, and educational neuroscience. So what I would ask you to do is, please, before we start, can you please write on the chat, what are the challenges you are experiencing if you are learning a language or languages, or if you are teaching, what are the challenges that you see your students experiencing in terms of the speaking skills? So a couple of minutes to do that in the chat. Confidence, okay, yeah. Sufficient feedback, pronunciation and confidence, fluency to express themselves, yeah. Finding people to practice, lack of motivation, the perfectionism, wanting to be perfect. Yes, this is one big one. Blackouts, yes, fill the blank, yeah. Fear of making mistakes, consistency, finding the words, remembering the words, great. Mistakes, yes. Pronunciation, the opportunity to speak in the language, okay, great. Yeah. Using the knowledge, yes, because one thing is the theoretical knowledge, another thing is to be able to use it. Spontaneity. Mm-hmm. One thing is to prepare the script, another thing is to do it on the spot. Finding someone with whom to practice. Okay, all right, so I'm going to move on. So the first top strategy is about motivation. And so now is the moment to connect with your motivation, or if you are only teaching, you are not learning language, the motivation of your students. Can you please write on the chat, what motivates you to learn the language? Or what motivates your students to learn the language? Is it traveling? They want to travel. In Spanish, it happens a lot. People want to travel to Spain, Spanish-speaking countries. Is it relationships? That you have a partner or in-laws or friends? Is it that you are looking for professional opportunities, and with languages that happens, many more opportunities are there? just simply love for the culture. I know people who just love the language and the culture, and that's it. It's not, or loving learning languages. Okay, wanting to communicate a lot, culture, family, love for languages. Traveling, being able to communicate. Okay. Travel, love for languages, and perhaps professional opportunities. Great. Okay, so the very first top strategies, the feeling of belonging when traveling. That's a very good one too, because it makes a big difference. One thing is to speak in English when you go to a non-English speaking country. Even if you can communicate, it's very different from speaking in their language. Communication, traveling, great. So the first is very simple, because, you know, I'm pretty certain that you will know most of the studies I'm going to talk about. Is more of a matter of having them, remembering them, and applying them. So the first one is to keep in mind your aims, your motivation. That's very powerful, because for learning, we have to make an effort. It definitely takes an effort. There are many challenging moments. So we have the stamina for dealing with whatever challenges we experience with vocabulary, with pronunciation, with grammar, if we have enough motivation. And I'm sure you do have it, because otherwise you wouldn't be in this session, but it's good to remember it from time to time. I certainly have a lot of motivation still to keep working on my English. And for me, there was a huge shift. When I was at the school, I was not motivated to learn English those days. That was so many years ago. I mean, 30, more than 30, 50 years ago. No, 50, no, but 40 years ago. Yes, it was 40 years ago. And at that time, there was no internet. I was not traveling yet, living in the northwest of Spain in a small town. And I had to shift from my French, learning French, to English suddenly when I changed school. It was a big trauma for me. So I had no motivation. I didn't like the classes and so on. But then when I started traveling in Europe, suddenly the flame was on, because I realized that if I wanted to communicate with people, if I wanted to connect with people from other languages, and I was very interested in that, then English would be the key. So that changed completely. And since then, that has kept me going for all these years. So please remember to keep in mind from time to time when things get tough, particularly, is remember, what am I doing this for? And what you are doing it for is worth it, is worth the effort. Number two, sorry, is to grow your vocabulary. This is the basic element of speaking. If we don't have words, we can't communicate. We may have a wonderful pronunciation, but we need still to have enough vocabulary to communicate what we want to communicate. And this is one of the biggest challenges. Some of you mentioned it in the chat, is the students and ourselves. When we are learning a language, is often we don't have enough words. At the early stages is one of the causes of frustration, wanting to say something as an adult when you still have the vocabulary of a child. So that's the number two top strategy. Once your motivation is in place, is you need to start growing your vocabulary. How to do that? Well, there are three main approaches. I've summarized the approaches to growing vocabulary into three approaches. One way in which we learn vocabulary is through exposure. If we are exposed to the language, something is going to stick in. Now, what is being researched, and I've seen it as a teacher happening also very clearly, is that the best input to which we can be exposed is comprehensible input. and interesting. It means in reading and listening, input language comes to us. We have to hear and read language before we can produce, before we can speak it. So comprehensible, it means that the level of whatever text you are reading or whatever conversation or audio you are listening is slightly higher than your level. That is, but it's not too hard. So that's why if you are a complete beginner and you are constantly surrounded by native speakers and you can barely understand the thing, you are not going to benefit much from that. Unless you are a child or you are in a family situation, that's different. But if you want to really use it as a strategy, is you need to find listening and reading that is slightly higher than your level, where you may need to use the dictionary, but not too much. And if it's interesting, it means that the topic interests you. Is even better because it's been well known and it's common sense that we remember what we are interested in. So if the topics interest you, that is going to be so much better. In my case, for example, when I came to Britain, I could barely say my name. I just would really get really embarrassed when people ask me, what's your name? And I would say, I'm Maria, but with great difficulty, because at school we had not practiced speaking skills. It was all about writing, translation, grammar, which was very good, but not speaking. So when I came I came to Britain to work as a nanny initially, and then started working, I started reading. The topics that interest me was self-development. And I learned an enormous amount of that through self-development tapes those days and books. Cartoons as well, children's cartoons. Sometimes I will borrow from the library children's cartoons because there was those little sentences with some basic vocabulary, and it was fun. So first approach to growing vocabulary, exposure, plenty of it. Second one is a classic, what we do when we study for exams, when we are at school, when we are doing language courses, is focused study. So it's about selecting specific words and collocations and working with them until you have memorized them well. Now, for that, there are many techniques. Vocabulary notebooks, flashcards, having basically writing down, recording, and making an effort to memorize. Now, there are 3 steps that are very, very important when we do focused study, when we want to memorize particular sentences or words. The number 1 is to create multiple associations. So to associate words or sentences with images, to put them into a sentence, to say them out loud. The more associations we make, the easier it is to store in long-term memory. That's been very well researched in cognitive psychology and in neuroscience. Second one is to practice spaced revision. And spaced revision, as you know, spaced, it means not cramming content. So doing kind of regularly, not every day, every few days, every 2 days, something like this, just to have your flashcards, go through the vocabulary notebook. So from time to time, revise. That helps also, again, to store long term, because what we want is long-term storage in memory of vocabulary. And the third one, very interesting, is to practice recall, which means you cover the flashcard and you test yourself. Do I know this? To make the effort is well researched in cognitive psychology, is worth making the effort. If we just keep reading and reading and reading, hoping that that will help us, well, it doesn't. It comes a point where we need to not see the word and think about what's the translation? How can I translate this? What is the word for book? Or what is the word for pen? And make an effort for that. Flashcards are great for doing these 3 steps. Now, there is a lot of content here that I've covered in this YouTube video. that is available if you type on how to learn vocabulary effectively. I will post the link as well at the end, by Maria Blanco. Is 15-minute video, everything about how to learn vocabulary effectively. And I explained very in detail these 3 approaches and the steps that I've just told you about focused study. And it has graphics and some questions for reflection. I highly recommend that you watch the video. Now, oh, here it is. You see? I didn't realize and I was clicking.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, but you can see it on your own time in Blackboard, sorry, in YouTube. Now, the third approach, sorry, I mentioned 2, exposure, focused study, and then obviously to use the vocabulary you are learning. So speak and write as regularly as you can. And these days, fortunately, with social media, many people are able to connect with friends, family, or even just places where there are topics of interest, and just drop some lines, read those captions for people who are still in the lower stages of learning, and use it as regularly as you can. That's the third approach to growing vocabulary. Remember one thing about vocabulary: multisensorial learning works best. So if you, with words, if you write or type, apparently writing, according to some research, is better for memorizing. If you read the word, if you hear the word, and you speak the word, the more senses you involve in the process of learning the vocabulary, the more chances are that it will stay in the long term and that you will be able to recall it when speaking. Okay. So number 2, some of you mentioned, for many people, and depending also of the mother tongue, obviously, pronunciation is the second challenge. First, you need vocabulary. Without vocabulary, there's nothing you can do. Then we need to reach a reasonable level of pronunciation. Perfectionism is one of the things that one has to learn to let go. Anybody who has learned a language, I think, has learned some of it. Otherwise, you get so blocked. We just block ourselves, really. But the pronunciation has to be reasonable. So if the mother tongue is very similar to the language we are learning, like, for example, Italians, when Italians learn Spanish, they barely have to work on pronunciation because it's very similar. But if a Japanese is learning Spanish, he will have to work on some sounds, particular sounds. So let's see what the macro strategy is to develop pronunciation now, how to do it. A very simple one, extremely simple and very powerful, is multisensing words. I'm just using that word because I feel it represents what I'm trying to say. Is when checking new words, the meaning of new words, for that to use an internet dictionary, please make the effort to do all these things, to read the word, obviously the meaning, to listen to the word. If you can write, and repeat out loud on the spot, because you are having a good model listening, and you are just dealing with one word, which is very manageable, extremely manageable. If you practice single words from time to time, when those words come up in speaking, you are already ready with those words. Yeah, the pronunciation is being worked through, so it's not a full sentence. It's a sentence where there are already words that you are already at ease with. So that's one. Chunking words is another one. Chunking words, for difficult words, I'm putting there an example of a Spanish word, electrodoméstico, which is a long word, maybe difficult for some students. So the simple thing is to break it into syllables, into chunks. It doesn't have to be academically a syllable. And then join bit by bit. So start with pronunciation of electrodoméstico. Then join electrodoméstico. And then electrodoméstico. It's worth slowing down breaking it down. I've seen it. I practice that with my students. It always works. No failure in this one. Spotting as well the stress syllable is a good exercise, is to pay attention of where's the stress and practice that too. Then another one, which is a very classic, I've done it so much with English myself. I've improved my pronunciation enormously doing this. And I recommend it to my students, and those students whose mother tongue is very different from Spanish make remarkable progress with this. Now, you need a transcript for this and an audio. Ideally, I mean, you can do it with video and subtitles as well, but I feel I would go for audio and transcript. So you play the audio and read at the same time the transcript. And then at some point, you select short chunks. So you listen to a sentence, pause, and then repeat, but repeat reading from the transcript and imitating to the best of your ability what you've just listened. Now you do that with short sentences. 10 minutes of doing this practice regularly can make a big, big difference. So you are associating the sound of the language with the written form of the language. That helps you not just with pronunciation, it helps you with listening, it helps you with writing, with reading, everything. It's a wonderful strategy. Very simple. You just need audio. Again, an audio that is suitable for your level. It's better to go for easy than for very difficult. And if it's of interest of you in terms of topic, better. And then practice until you get really fast. And it comes a point where you can play the audio and say it at the same time, like shadowing the speaker, until you really can do it at the same time without difficulty. This is a fabulous one. Now, the other thing is applications. There are tons of applications these days for practicing particular sounds of the languages. Artificial intelligence as well. I'm starting to explore artificial intelligence, how to use it for learning and for teaching. And it's amazing what it can do. Some of you probably have been in some of the presentations about the topic. And so you can work with your pronunciation, can even give you feedback. So I very much recommend that you explore these avenues as well, without forgetting that the other ones, very simple ones I've just given you, do work. Now, the last one, fun. Introduce fun. I'm sure many of you are already listening to songs and singing along. If you are not, I highly recommend that you do that. Create a playlist with the music that you like. Listen and sing along. And even if you don't sing along, just listening. And these days, because we also have the lyrics with YouTube, Spotify, you name it, YouTube Music, you can listen and read at the same time, sing along at the same time. Again, it's another one I've used a lot and my students use a lot. And it's involving enjoyment, emotion. It also, you learn a lot of vocabulary. You can learn grammar. Sometimes it's tricky because songs are not necessarily very grammatical oriented, but vocabulary, you can pick up a lot of vocabulary from there. And they stay because music stays with us. So do yourself a favor and use music for improving your pronunciation. Now, another big one is grammar. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a story because I hear from students, I've done thousands of oral exams, and I hear from lots of students, I'm not good at speaking. And I discovered very early on that that's not true, that they may have difficulty with some of the elements of speaking, but nobody has been born good or bad with speaking. So the key elements are vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar. And very often in Spanish students, where they will have difficulties with the grammar, because you may know the theory of grammar, but one thing is to know it, another thing is to produce it automatically on the spot, because the big challenge of speaking is that we have to produce on the spot. In most cases, if we are interacting with people, there is a certain amount of time we can take, but we cannot be thinking and thinking and thinking, because then the conversation kind of dies. And that's part of the pressure. So what I found with students is that automatizing grammar is a big one. And that's why it's so important to automatize grammar, to have it ready for speaking, so that we can produce it without having to think about it. Now, how to do that? Using exactly the same 3 approaches as for vocabulary. We can learn a lot of grammar through comprehensible exposure to comprehensible and interesting language input through reading and listening. Reading particularly because we can go over the text, see how the tenses work, the past tenses. For example, if you want to learn the past tense, to be better with the past tense, so choose a biography or some of these stories that use a lot the past tense, and then that's exposure, and some of the stuff will stick. So that's one. Now, the next one, with focused study for grammar, it means that you select a grammar point, like the past tense, for example, then you study the form, how is it done, the form, and the uses. When do Spanish people, English people use the past tense, the simple past tense? And then you do lots of drills. In most cases, for most people, it will be necessary. If it's not necessary, it's not necessary. No compulsion. And then use the same as with vocabulary. So you need to write and speak, and through use, you will automatize the grammar. Now, the next one, top strategy, is to engage in formal and informal language learning strategies. What do I mean by formal language learning strategies? These are the ones that are classically done in the classroom. We are going to see here the list. And in contrast with the informal, you can see on the left of the screen, fill in the gap grammar and vocabulary exercises, pronunciation drills, comprehension exercises, role plays, infogap exercises, essay writing, creating a vocabulary notebook, flashcards will be as well, making grammar summaries. All those things are formal ways of approaching the language. So we usually focus on the theory of the language, or in particular chunks, particular vocabulary, particular grammar, and we learn to use that for speaking in the classroom or self-study. That's not you can do that with materials yourself. And then the informal way is just reading books that we are interested in, magazines, newspapers, watching video clips, listening to music, talking to native speakers, films, going to, in my case, I forgot to remove that Spanish, going to restaurants, German restaurants, whatever language you are learning in your town, if there are places where natives gather and there is some cultural event, or those places. In the salsa lessons is the example of Spanish. I've seen students making a lot of progress once they started, just because they love dancing, going to salsa lessons, and there is opportunity to interact with the music, with the people, and do it in a very enjoyable way. And obviously, Spanish friends in social media, that's for people who learn Spanish, but you can change the word Spanish for any other language you are learning or teaching. So what is the advantage of doing the two things for speaking? Is in the formal activities, you are going to learn to be accurate. That's the development of accuracy happens a lot through formal activities for most people. And in informal, you are going to develop fluency. That's the moment where you have to kind of switch off and forget about, I'm learning a language. You're just immersing yourself in the language and doing it in an enjoyable environment with topics that you enjoy, with people that you are at ease with. So those two things are perfect for developing accuracy and fluency in speaking. Number 6 is to have a positive attitude, very positive attitude. So yes, you can, anybody can. I've seen people who came to the classroom terrified, not knowing, thinking that they couldn't make it, and they made it. Absolutely. It's a process, it's a progress. Noticing what works for you. I've given you loads of macro strategies and then micro strategies. And you have to notice what works well for you. For some people, it will be more auditory stuff. For some people, myself, I need a lot of writing and reading. That helps me a lot. Then I feel the speaking comes through much more easily. Getting out of the comfort zone, yes, is not easy, but to grow and to learn, we need to get out of the comfort zone. Letting go of perfectionism, we have to work on that. There is no choice. And remember that these days also very few people expect native-like accent. If you want to work on that, you can work on that. I keep working on my English accent. But the point is to be understood, to just work on it enough to be understood. And for that, usually going to classes or having a teacher, somebody who can give you feedback, not just a machine, it tends to help. Embracing that this is a process, so there will be stages. That's the way it is. And sometimes we make a big jump, and sometimes the jump is very short or feels that we are stuck. But if you work at it, it can always improve. And make it as enjoyable as possible, what I was saying about the informal learning. So these are the 6 top strategies. For me, they encompass everything I know and I've seen working for developing good, excellent speaking skills. And I've seen many cases. I tell you, over 25 years, you get to see lots of people who apparently initially you look at them and think, oh my God, how are we going to do it? And then they get on with it, and they do very well. And I've seen people also who were really good at it, and because they don't work at it, they kind of get stagnant. So keep in mind your motivation, your aims, grow your vocabulary, pronunciation, and develop your pronunciation. Automatize your grammar so that it's there, and engage in formal and informal practice, having a very positive attitude, the best positive attitude. Surround yourself with people who are doing similar things. For that, lessons tend to be really good, being with groups of people who are doing something similar, even if it's online. And with a positive attitude, we can get really far. So these are the 6 top strategies. For those of you who are interested in resources, I have for Spanish speakers, the book on how to learn Spanish. Is all about strategies. The strategies are applicable to other languages. For teachers, I have how to teach language learning strategies. You can find more information about these things in my website, which is very easy to remember, mariablancocoaching.com. And if you want to get the book, the How to Learn Spanish, I offer, you can buy it through my website right now, the printed copy, and I offer as a present for people who are attending the show, a free coaching session for the 10 first people buying the printed book. And I'm always very happy to respond questions via email beyond the workshop. So let's go to the questions now. We have still about 8 minutes, and we can stay longer if necessary. I've seen that some of you have written comments on the chat. I'm going to have a look and see. Please, if you have questions, write it on the Q&A. It makes a lot easier to respond them. So I see. Let me try to find the questions. Because somebody, which is more important for input, being at the right level or being interested? Well, I would say being at the right level, because you can make a Chris Fry is asking. I would say definitely at the right level, doing that which is slightly higher. That's what is called comprehensible input. And you can motivate yourself, remembering that you are reading, you are listening because you are wanting to increase your vocabulary. Sometimes it's not easy, particularly at early stages, not easy to find topics that we're interested in. Early stages or lower intermediate. But then the best is when you can find something that is slightly higher and that interests you. I've seen real miracles with this thing happening. What else? voice typing with the words you are learning? Yes, because you will find that when you're interested in the topic, you will manage to decode most things. Yes, yes. Okay. Listening pop music, to study and understand grammatical structures, one with an exposure to, yes, yes, yes. That's why exposure is the number one. If you can expose yourself, and sometimes people have a lot of exposure and very little formal learning, but once they do start the formal learning, it's like an explosion, because all the stuff that they've already picked up helps, is like oils the system. Native speakers unsolicited negative feedback. Well, that's why you need to surround yourself with positive people. That's very, very important, as much as people. Thank you. It's been, yes. Look down, read silently, look up and say loud. Yes. Yeah. That's part of the listen and repeat, read and repeat. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to the Q&A. What if you speak different languages? I'm having difficulties to keep them at the same level and keep them apart sometimes. You have any tips? I have some students who go through that. And my advice is to have distinctive days for studying the language. So it's like Monday, French, leave space, Wednesday, Italian, Friday, Japanese, and have, if you can, have the same times, like create a schedule where you just, you get into the habit of now is French, now is Japanese, now is German, separating that. And the same thing when you are practicing. If you jumble them, I think it gets harder. Are there interactive speaking games? When yes, there are. I cannot. I don't have anything on top of my mind right now. I'm not too much into game, but I'll find out. Cartwright, if you don't mind sending me an email, you can contact through my website. Email me, and then Christian. Okay, Christian. If you email me, I will look for that. And Rosetta Stone was a classic one. I don't know. Lately, I haven't been in touch with the latest versions, but I will find out and let you know. Okay. Any more questions? Or everything is clear? One of my students asked if it would be worth. Okay, Annette. One of my students asked if it would be worth his while watching TV, though he's a beginner. Yes, of course. Yes, yes, yes. Tell him yes. I recommend subtitles for beginners. Put it in your mother tongue or in English, any language where they are proficient, so that they can understand the message. And then it comes a point where if they can switch and have the subtitle in the language they are learning, and then the final one is when there are no subtitles. But very few people can manage to really go through a film without using subtitles if they are the early stages, unless they speak a language which is very similar. But yes, exposure always recommended to anything that is fun, that is interesting. Absolutely. Any more questions? Or is everything crystal clear? So if you don't write anything more in the chat, I wish you a great journey. I have no doubt that wherever you are, you can make more progress. There is no ceiling to how much you can develop. I tell you, I came to this country speaking, basically, my name is Maria, that was it. And here I am very, very happy. It's one of the best investments I've done in my life to really put energy into developing my English skills. It allows me to do my work and connect with people like you who are also interested in communication, in other cultures, and it's very enriching. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Muchas gracias en español. Merci. Danke. That's as far as I can go. Is there any more question? Just put Netflix tip in chat. Netflix? Mary, would you mind just saying what you mean by that? Netflix tip. Okay, what I'll do is to put on the chat the link to the to the video so that you can have the link in the video. Let's see. YouTube, how to learn Spanish. No, how to learn vocabulary effectively, sorry. Oops. Maria Blanco. Yes. So this is.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Maria Blanco. I am a senior.
So I'll put it in the chat. And you can access. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Yes, it's been a great journey. Now I can say it finally. I tell you at the beginning, it was such a struggle, massive struggle. But the love for communication, in my case, communicating with people from other cultures and traveling, that was what kept me going. And then I stayed in Britain learning, living, and definitely wanted to integrate and to work. And then I just kept learning, and it's a miracle. It happens. It happens. Muchas gracias. Don't hesitate to get in touch if you have questions or need any further advice, guidance. I'll be very happy to do that. I put in the chat, it's in the chat, Annette, the video on how to learn vocabulary effectively, which is a video I've produced with 2 students from the university. It's been a lovely project to kind of summarize most of the stuff. No, it's not. Oh, sorry, it's for everyone, sorry. Now it'll go there. Now you can have it. It was just for hosts and panelists. So that summarizes most of what I said about growing vocabulary. And I'm hoping to produce this year another one on pronunciation and another one on grammar. Yeah. Kieran, you hope your nephew is watching. Oh, great. Yeah, lovely. Anything more? Otherwise, we go. Muchas gracias. Enjoy the rest of the show. It's an amazing event. And I look forward to as well to watch many of the recordings. Very interesting, many of the topics that are in the show. Thank you. Mucha suerte. Lots of good luck with your learning experience. Ciao, ciao.